And the world impoverishes itself by spending $1 trillion a year on preparations for war, and by employing perhaps half the scientists and high technologists on the planet in military endeavors. How would we explain all this to a dispassionate extraterrestrial observer? What account would we give of our stewardship of the planet Earth? We have heard the rationales offered by the superpowers. We know who speaks for the nations, but who speaks for the human species? Who speaks for Earth? From an extraterrestrial perspective, our global civilization is clearly on the edge of failure in the most important task it faces, preserving the lives and well-being of its citizens and the future habitability of the planet. But if we're willing to live with the growing likelihood of nuclear war, shouldn't we also be willing to explore vigorously every possible means to prevent nuclear war? Shouldn't we consider in every nation major changes in the traditional ways of doing things, a fundamental restructuring of economic, political, social, and religious institutions? We've reached a point where there can be no more special interests or special cases. Nuclear arms threaten every person on the Earth. Fundamental changes in society, sometimes labeled impractical or contrary to human nature, as if nuclear war were practical, or as if there were only one human nature. But fundamental changes can clearly be made. We're surrounded by them. In the last 2 centuries, abject slavery, which was with us for thousands of years, has almost entirely been eliminated in a stirring worldwide revolution. Women, systematically mistreated for millennia, are gradually gaining the political and economic power traditionally denied to them. And some wars of aggression have recently been stopped or curtailed because of a revulsion felt by the people in the aggressor nations. The old appeals to racial, sexual, religious chauvinism and to rabid nationalist fervor are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the Earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed. We are one planet.
The human being realize that we are all one, basically. Not as an idea, but as a fact. Because when you go to India, you see the misery, the confusion, the anxiety, the despair of people running to their petty little gods whom they have created. You come to Europe, it's exactly the same thing. You understand, sir? First, to realize, not verbally, but in your heart, in your blood, in your whole thinking, that human beings right through the world go through the same agonies that one goes through. The loneliness, the despair, the depressions, the extraordinary uncertainty, insecurity, whether they live 10,000 miles away or 2,000 miles or here. They're all psychologically bound together. If one realizes that profoundly in your guts, in your blood, in your heart, in your mind, then you are responsible.
Don't you see?
You're a great crowd before I go, even though this is a world where good men are murdered. Men who try and help are murdered and cut down in their prime of their youth, and hacks and mediocres and fascists run everything else. I'm going to share with you a vision that I had, because I love you, and you feel it. You know all that money we spend on nuclear weapons and defense every year, trillions of dollars, correct? Instead, just play with this. If we spent that money feeding and clothing the poor of the world, and it would pay for it many times over, not one human being excluded, we could, as one race, explore outer space together in peace forever.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know, and I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line, but I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time, but now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, you know. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane, you know, but I'm liable to be put away as insane for expressing that. You know, that's what's insane about it.
You know what would change the world overnight is if we as a human race started doing what we knew to be right and just in the circumstances that we face, instead of making those decisions as so many people do and have long done on basis of what is right for me in this circumstance that I face. Okay, the just thing to do might not be in the moment the best thing to do, but it's the just and right thing to do. And if we started doing what we knew to be right when we're faced with these decisions, as opposed to what we perceive is right for us in the moment, although doing what is right for us in the eternity, then everything would change. If we want a world of peace, then be peaceful. It sounds trite, it sounds simple, but it's devastatingly profound. That's what we need to be with each other. You know, we have people going on anti-war marches who are hurling abuse at each other in their relationships and stuff like that. If we war with each other, then the collective version of that is warring collectively. If we want peace, let's be peaceful. If we want a world of kindness, then let's be kind. And it must come, for goodness sake. It must. If we're all kind to each other, we live in a kind world. Martin Luther King said, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. And when enough of us take that stance, everything changes. The revolution is not a revolution of weapons, it's not a revolution of fighting, it's not a revolution of hatred, it's a revolution of perception, because everything changes. Ah, I am a lion then. I'm not the lamb I kept seeing in the mirror and the world kept telling me I was. And then that expresses itself out into the true nature of who we are.
Here's to the crazy ones. The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.